Hey guys, it is Kid. I am back with an actual first installment of Vegan Thanksgiving. Woohoo! So I have done vegan Thanksgiving for my family before, but I've never recorded it. So this year I wanted to record it. I wanted to let you guys in on kind of some of the things that I do to celebrate Thanksgiving with my family. This year we're also invited to like a Friendsgiving event in Miami. So I'm going to be baking cookies for everyone and packaging them up and putting them in tins and really just spreading love on something that I love to do. So we're also invited to another Thanksgiving gathering, which I'm going to be baking cookies for as well. Obviously vegan. But I'm going to be bringing you guys through my entire menu. So I'm going to break it up into installments. It's actually Tuesday, Thanksgiving's on Thursday, so I'm not trying to be in the kitchen all day. So I'm making some of the items that I can now, so that way we can still go out and enjoy our time with everyone. I have a couple appointments for my eyebrows and then also my hair and my nails, but we'll get to that later on. So today what I'm going to be doing is potato salad, cornbread. I'm going to be making two things with cornbread, one for the dressing and then one for just to eat, and then yams and collards. So that's what you'll see first. But my full menu item includes vegan cornbread, vegan popcorn chicken, vegan mac and cheese, vegan cornbread dressing, collards, sweet potatoes, and then I'm making red velvet crinkle cookies and potato salad. Right guys, so I'm in my kitchen now and here's all the stuff that I am doing. So right now you can see that I have the bath for the collards. I'm gonna put some of that distilled white vinegar in there in a minute, but I'm just recording, and this is all the stuff that I have set up to kind of help me get going. This pan is going to be for the collards. That's going to be to start the potato salad. That's for the cornbread. And then this is for the syrup that goes on the dressing. So let's get ready to rumble. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is wash the greens. As you know, if you don't wash the greens, they could be gritty. So that's what you see me doing here, washing off any of the dirt and any of the excess grit from the greens. Okay, so while the greens are soaking in a little bit of vinegar, what you see me doing now is boiling the potatoes to start the potato salad. The potatoes are mini red potatoes. I'm showing you right here that they are pre-washed, so they're already good to go. Just putting them in the actual pot to get them going and putting some salt in my water. So while the greens are soaking and the potatoes are boiling, I'm gonna go ahead and start on the cornbread. The cornbread is needed to eat by itself, and then it's also needed for the cornbread dressing. So I'm going to be using all-purpose flour, and then you can see the oat milk on the counter right now. I'm measuring out the sugar and the cornmeal. That second ingredient was the actual cornmeal, and now I'm measuring out the sugar for sweetness. So I'm adding some sea salt right now, and then I'm adding in my baking powder. Obviously that's going to be for leavening. And then a good trick, if you don't sift, is to just use a whisk to mix everything together, all your dry ingredients before you add the wet. So that's what I'm doing here, mixing everything together really well. Now I'm measuring out the oat milk. Obviously we're going to add some moisture to this cornbread. And then I'm gonna need some canola oil. You can use any oil, but you wanna make sure it doesn't have a flavor to it. So a flavorless oil is best. And now I'm just mixing it. Make sure you don't overmix, so that way it's not tough. And yeah, getting it poured into the pan after it's greased, and we're ready to go. So here I decided to get rid of that big pot in the front for the greens and go ahead and put the potatoes in the front for the potato salad on the eye, just to work a lot quicker. So that's why you saw me switch the pans there. The next thing that I'm doing now is getting the syrup ready for the actual sweet potatoes to get baked. So that's what you see me doing off camera, is getting all that stuff together for the yams. So I'm going to start with some butter in my pan. which is obviously vegan, a couple of tablespoons, get it melted down. Next, we're gonna start with some maple syrup, which is what you see there, about 1/4 of a cup. Add a little extra if you need it. And then that's gonna be the vanilla essence. Once again, you're just adding your different sweet components to drizzle over the yams. That's gonna be some cinnamon. Make sure you get a good grade. And then now I'm adding some nutmeg. It's definitely a great addition to anything that has to do with like sweet potatoes and fall flavors. So that's what I'm going for there. Now I'm adding in some brown sugar. It doesn't take too long to melt down, but that's exactly what's happening in the pot here. Save time, I didn't want to use fresh yams, so I did use canned, and I just rinsed them off. So that's what was going on in the sink right behind me the last few seconds. And now I'm just mixing up my syrup to get this all nice and gooey for the yams. All right, so the greens are finally done. I'm gonna start with some liquid smoke. I'm gonna add in some pepper, and basically what we're doing now is just adding seasonings. As you know, vegetables, they do need a lot of help. So at the bottom, I have some vegetable broth in the pan already, as well as some tomatoes and red peppers to add some additional flavor to the greens. Is on the greens, and now we're gonna go ahead and switch to the mac and cheese sauce. So I was just chopping up some onions. What I'm doing is starting my roux, so that way I can start the base for the sauce of the mac and cheese. So I'm gonna start with the onions, just chopping them up. I have some olive oil in the pan, and now I'm just adding some salt. I'm gonna stir it until it's translucent to get the onions going for the sauce. Now I'm adding my onion and garlic powder and some pepper, still trying to build the base for the mac and cheese sauce. I'm adding in some vegetable broth. The eye is a little too high right here, so that's why you see me push it away and start to stir it on the other eye or off of the eye, just to make sure nothing burns. So now I'm adding the paprika, and I added some oat milk as well, which is unsweetened. Now I'm adding the nutritional yeast, which will add some nutrients to the actual mac and cheese itself. So just getting everything stirred up, getting it to a nice thick consistency. I keep checking at the camera to make sure that you guys can actually see what I'm cooking. I'm checking on the greens, and then I'm setting a timer on my microwave, which is why I looked up and started pushing buttons just to make sure nothing burns. I do have the cornbread in the oven at the same time that the greens and the mac and cheese sauce is being built. So lots of multitasking, but it's all good. I love to cook. So next is a secret ingredient. I do add in butternut squash to my mac and cheese. It provides some nutrients, and you really can't even taste it, but it does provide a good color. So now I'm adding in a little curry, and then some more onion and garlic powder, because I want to make sure that the actual butternut squash is seasoned as well. So it's a nice little trick, and it also adds some depth to the macaroni and cheese without it just being noodles. Most pasta noodles don't really provide any nutrients, so I do want to make sure that we're able to get some good vegetables even in the mac and cheese. So if you haven't tried it, I definitely suggest giving it a try. So now I'm just stirring it. Since the butternut squash was frozen, I want to make sure that it's melting down, so I just added some salt to help it and to season it, and now I'm just continuing to stir until it's all melted down, and crushing it some as well. So what I'm doing now is using my immersion blender. I was having some trouble with the actual butternut squash breaking down. So I don't want huge clumps of it. So I wanted to just basically disappear. Now I'm adding the filled roast cheese to the actual sauce. And then I'm adding the blocks of Daiya cheese into the mix, so that way it can melt down. You can also use the shredded Daiya cheese. I do have that as well, but I also wanted to finish up the block of cheese that I had, the slices. So now I'm adding in more nutritional yeast. Obviously it provides that cheesy flavor and more protein and nutrition to the actual mac and cheese as well. So now I'm adding in the elbow pasta. I did use organic elbow pasta. I've already kind of cooked it off camera. So I'm just adding it into the actual mix right now, into the cheese sauce that I was creating. Transitioned over to my island so you can see me pouring it in the actual dish. Before I poured it in the actual dish, I did put some oil in the bottom of my pan just to make sure the noodles don't stick at the Now I'm adding the actual bag of Daiya cheese on top. Daiya is a really good meltable cheese, so I wanted to save that last bag to put on top so it can melt into the actual mac and cheese itself. I'm gonna add a little bit more pepper and some salt and some paprika on top just for extra seasoning. So the mac and cheese is in the oven, and now I'm getting ready to start on the potato salad. So the actual potatoes, the little red potatoes, are done. And a secret ingredient I love to use is garbanzo beans or chickpeas in the actual potato salad, because it does give it the effect of eggs once you mush it up, which you see me doing here. It just adds more texture and depth into the actual potato salad. So once I've drained it, I'm now just smashing it down. So if you haven't tried this, I would actually give it a try. I think you'll be very delighted to see the depth that it adds. So now I'm just smashing down the mashed potatoes. We don't want it to be too mashed because obviously it's going into a potato salad, but we do want it mashed enough that it will have the same consistency as a potato salad. Since I used red mini potatoes, it cooked a lot faster, so I didn't have to worry about spending too much time for it to boil over. Now I'm just adding in my seasonings to the actual potatoes, again building the flavors. So I'm adding in the garlic powder and the onion powder just to make sure that every layer is flavored before I add in the next steps. Then that's some black pepper, and now I'm adding in the actual garbanzo beans. Once you drain them, you don't have to do anything else to the beans but flavor them once they're mushed down. And now I'm just adding extra seasoning for the actual garbanzo beans. Now I'm just combining everything together. I want to make sure that everything is incorporated very, very well. And that's going to be yellow mustard powder, which is going to give it, a mustardy flavor without overpowering it. So I'm seasoning it up with that. And then I'm adding in a little bit of celery salt, and I forgot to take off the top. So that's what I'm doing, is taking off the seal. And now I'm adding in some white pepper, which helps it to give it another depth of flavor versus just black pepper. It's really important, especially as vegans, just to build the seasoning. I feel like that's what we have to rely on a lot. So I just added in some mustard and some sweet relish. And I went to a bunch of different stores to try to find the best vegan mayo, and I actually liked all of them, so I just chose to use a little bit of each. I went to Trader Joe's, and then I believe Target had the other 2 options that I tried. So I just decided to leave them all in. Some of them were savory, and then some of the mayos were sweet, so I thought it would help it out in the end. And it did turn out to be a really good option to just use all 3. I didn't use a lot because you don't want it to be soupy. You still want it to hold its texture, but it did need just a tad bit more. But be sure not to overdo the mayonnaise. You don't want a soupy potato salad. That would be horrible. So now I'm just mixing everything, getting it all incorporated, leaving no potato behind. I do like to add a little bit of sugar in my potato salad. I am a sweet potato salad person. I grew up eating it that way, so that is what my taste buds have become accustomed to as far as potato salad is concerned. Everything you see me making right now is obviously made ahead before Thanksgiving. I think this is on Tuesday when I'm meal prepping all of these items. So right now I'm fixing up the cornbread for the dressing. So this is not the full cornbread we're gonna cut and eat. This is what I'm going to chop up and then eventually use it in the cornbread dressing. So that's why I'm putting it into a sandwich bag. You don't even have to let it cool down. It's literally just going right in the refrigerator. So you just want to get some big chunks in there because it's going to serve as the base for the cornbread dressing. And the longer it sits, I feel like the better the flavors come together, because when we ate this cornbread, it was delicious in the dressing. So just a tip to cook ahead. So as you can see, I've just finished cooking, and I'm intentionally not trying to look 1,000,000% right now, okay? All right. So now I'm about to start putting together the cookie displays for our group of friends. I'm still waiting for the greens to get done, and then the mac and cheese is in the oven. So those are the last 2 things. I'm gonna show you how my setup in this refrigerator is going so far. So that's the potato salad, the cornbread, and then this is the cornbread for the dressing, and then back there are the yams. So pretty good progress today. And the mac and cheese is doing its thing, and then still waiting for these greens to get done, but they smell amazing. So then since we're gonna be out tomorrow in Miami, that's why I decided to do most of the cooking earlier. So I normally don't cook as early on Tuesday, but it's not gonna really matter because we're, well, I'm vegan. It's not like it's dairy anyway, so it'll be fine. So now, like I said, to the wrapping of all these gifts and everything. So let the games begin. So now I am going to be making some red velvet crinkle cookies. I've actually made most of it on camera, but we kind of lost the footage. So we were able to kind of capture the end where the actual cookie dough mix has been in the refrigerator for about a day now. Actually almost 2 days, and what I'm doing now is just folding the cookies into confectioner's sugar, because these are red velvet crinkle cookies. So once the cookies start to open up and bake, it'll show a form of a crinkle in between the cookies. So that's what you see me doing here. These are not for our friends. These are actually to stay at home. I did make chocolate chip cookies that we sent to our friends when we went out with them for the next day, which would be Wednesday for Friendsgiving. So that's what you see me doing here. Now it is Turkey Thanksgiving Day and I am so excited. I have all that I need to start fresh making the actual dressing. So what you see me doing now is breaking down some Beyond sausages. It's kind of a secret little tip I like to use because of the breakfast sauces has sage, which helps when you're making cornbread dressing. So over to the side, you'll see the onions, the peppers, and the celery, which I also use for the dressing. Now that I've mixed everything together, I'm just putting it in the bowl, which I did add crackers and vegetable broth. The dressing is going to go in the oven for about 30 minutes or so, and then what I'm going to be doing now is starting on my fried chicken, which is going to be made from soy corals. So what you see me doing now in the bowl is adding all of my dry ingredients. So at different points you'll see me adding black pepper, cornstarch, all-purpose flour, baking soda, baking powder, dried thyme, dried basil, dried oregano, some celery salt, some mustard powder, paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, and ground ginger. So those are all the seasonings that are on the counter and what I'm adding in at different points. I did add a little bit more flour because I felt like I needed it, so I had to go back and re-season everything just to make sure that everything was seasoned, and obviously it's chicken, so you want to make sure that it's yummy. And you can find the soy curls on fakemeats.com. It's the Butler soy curls. They do have to hydrate for about 30 to 45 minutes, so that way they're nice and juicy. And then I'm just making the dry dreading for it. What I just did is added Bragg's amino to the actual soy curls, so that way they can get some liquids back in them. I added some Aquafaba, which I had left over from the chickpeas, and then I'm going to be adding some black pepper. Basically, we're just building seasonings for each layer for the actual chicken and the dreading itself. And now I'm adding some cornstarch to the actual soy curls. Since they are wet, they'll be able to adhere to the dredge a lot better. So I'm just mixing everything together. And then now I'm going to put the soy curls in the actual flour, so that way we can go ahead and start the frying process. And that's just me putting it on a cooling rack, so that way the excess flour will drip to the bottom. And then there's my husband in the back. He is the fry chef, so he's getting ready to start frying the chicken for me. Now that my dredging is all done, my lovely, wonderful honey bunny is now frying everything up for me. I believe he did what he called a double fry. So he fries it on low, and then he lets the oil drain off, and then he refries them. So that's kind of what he's doing there. His frying skills are way better than mine. So he's still frying here. And he's kind of, salting as he goes, which he probably did off camera. But yeah, he's just getting in the thick of it for us. So this is the final picture of everything that we prepared for Thanksgiving, our first Thanksgiving that's fully vegan. So over to the left, you're gonna see the actual yams with the marshmallows on top, and then it's the vegan Crinkle red velvet cookies. Right in the middle, you're gonna see that yummy mac and cheese. Right behind the mac and cheese is the potato salad. Then starting from the right, you're gonna see the yams, the dressing, the cornbread, and the fried chicken. And then we did get some sparkling rosé. And then my husband brought me some lovely flowers, and I put some candles behind it. And this was what our spread looked like for our first vegan Thanksgiving. So we are so thankful to enjoy the holidays and enjoy a wonderful meal together, even vegan style.
Oh, wow.
I know him and his cake. What? Why did you turn around like that? Why did you? That was so diabolical.
Why I turn around like?
Like, why would you do? Like, you're the villain of my story.
What's going on?
It was a slow turn for me.
What you about to say, Mom? What you say? Baby, while I leave, you was about to say
Start skating.
right.
You don't have to come. It's okay.
Right. I'm gonna be alright tonight.
That song be like Omarion. Toot, 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 toot.
When you finish, I can tell you what plant
I saw Punta.
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
Walking downtown on Thanksgiving.
Trying to walk off all this stuff.
I didn't eat that much. I'm actually still full from my first meal.
Yeah, you didn't even eat the cookie.
I did.